Good day, everyone. In this video, I present my bachelor thesis on strategic adaptation to tariffs, how individual firms respond when a tariff raises their costs. This is based on the empirical setting of the 25% tariff imposed by the United States on imported cars in April 2025. I'll walk you through the work in order. The question and objectives, the theoretical framework I used, the methodology and data, the results, and finally the conclusions made from the study. And the analysis is built around two German luxury manufacturers, Mercedes-Benz and Porsche. A tariff is an exogenous cost shock that can't be negotiated. A firm has two basic options. Either we can pass it through to the consumer, which would result in raising the price, protecting our margin, but risk losing sales volume. Or on the other hand, absorb the tariff, hold the prices flat, and let the profit margin compress. However, the benefit will be that market share will be protected. My claim, however, is that which option a firm can even choose from is determined by its market power. So the research question states, how does firm level market power shape both the degree and the timing of pass-through? The thesis pursues four objectives. First, to identify the theoretical determinants of pass-through, which are the markup of the firm, the demand elasticity, and market structure. Second, we assess the empirical evidence from the 2025 episode across countries and price tiers. Third, we test whether that evidence is consistent with theory. Fourth, we illustrate the mechanism through Mercedes and Porsche. The framework we used is based on the Dixit-Stiglitz monopolistic competition and the Lerner index. And the logic is a chain of logic, meaning a low elasticity of substitution sigma means that buyers see the product as differentiated and do not switch. That results in a high Lerner index, which means that a firm has a wide markup over marginal cost, where L equals 1 over sigma. That markup is a cushion. The firm can compress their margins without incurring any losses, and the cushion is what makes incomplete pass-through R below 1 feasible. So our prediction states that high markup and low elasticity producers in the luxury segment are structurally best placed to absorb the exogenous cost shock. Now onto our methodology and data. The study is a theory-guided quasi-experimental difference in difference logic, meaning a deliberately descriptive rather than econometric, because with our sample size of two firms and a single episode, the data simply cannot support a fitted pass-through coefficient. The data are secondary and fully traceable, based on base trim MSRPs for each model across the 2024 to 2026 model years, which were drawn from manufacturer and licensed dealer pricing and cross-checked against the automotive press. Firm level gross margins were obtained from the annual reports, as with 2023 used as the pre-tariff baseline. More importantly, the design uses build location as the source of variation, meaning within Mercedes, the C and S class are German built and exposed to the import tariff. However, the GLE and GLS are exclusively built in Alabama in the United States, in the Tuscaloosa plant, and are therefore shielded from the cost shock. The difference contrast is what states that firm. Two measures are being used. Pi, which is the retail pass-through computed from MSRP changes against the tariff, reported across a sensitivity band because the customer's value isn't public. Our gross margin compression I used only as the observable trace of absorption. Market power itself I attributed from theory, not from the accounts. Therefore, we can state H1 as the retail pass-through is incomplete if pi is smaller 1 in the luxury segment, and H2 within a firm the response concentrates in the exposed modules. The first set of results concern the degree of pass-through, and it splits by stage. At the border, the literature on the episode by Gopinath and Niemann find pass-through close to 1, where exporters didn't absorb. R near 1 means they're consistent with a flat export supply curve, meaning exporters did not cut their pre-duty prices. My own contribution is at the retail stage in the top right, computing pi for each exposed model at the central assumption. I find every value below 1, the C class at 0.89, that's the first bar here, the model of the Porsche 911 and Cayenne 0.6 at 0.68, Taycan 0.64, S-Class, and then the Panamera. How do we interpret this data? The interpretation is the gap between the two stages. Pass-through is near to complete at the border, but incomplete at the dealer, which locates the absorption downstream to the supply chain, where the markup cushion sits. And because the euro appreciated about 4.5% over the period, part of the dollar increase is exchange rate and not tariff. Netting that out pushes every figure further below 1, so the evidence is therefore consistent with our H1 hypothesis. The second set of results concerns where the response landed and when on the where, comparing exposed against shielded model within Mercedes, the German-built C and S-Class rose 17.8% and 11.3% respectively over the 2024 to 2026 period, while the Alabama-built GLE and GLS rose only 1.4% and 4%, same firm, same dealers, but the main difference is in tariff exposure. The adjustment tracks the tariff, not the brand, which is what H2 predicted. On the when, we can say that the firm level record shows the response was sequenced, not mechanical, in the 2025 model year, with the tariffs permanent still uncertain. Both firms, however, held their prices fairly constant, and meaning they absorbed the tariff cost shock. Porsche disclosed as well that roughly 800 million euros of tariff cost were attributed in 2026. And once the policy was locked in as a permanent policy, larger price increases appeared that falls back on the timing pattern that sits a little beyond the static framework, which predicts how much is passed through but not exactly when, which I treat it as an extension the evidence suggested. To bring everything together, we conclude 3 findings. Pass-through at retail was incomplete and fell as the markup widened, which is attributed to the learner mechanism showing up in the data. Absorption was concentrated in the firms with the most pricing power and tracked tariff exposure rather than the brand. And timing was the real lever, where firms absorbed under uncertainty, then passed through once the policy was in place, and firms had certainty. The overall conclusion made from this thesis is that market power does not fix a single pass-through rate. It it we can see it as a way that it grants a firm the discretion over how much of a tariff to transmit and over when. That completes the presentation of my work. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed my work.